The congressional hearing room buzzed with anticipation as the House Oversight Committee prepared to question Caroline Leavitt, the 27-year-old White House press secretary. Every seat was filled, with political reporters, staffers, and onlookers crowding the space. C-SPAN cameras captured every angle, their lenses trained on the witness table where Leavitt sat, her expression calm and composed. At the forefront stood House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, a 54-year-old Democratic veteran known for his sharp questioning and ability to dominate hearings. His tailored suit and rectangular glasses projected authority, and his goal was clear: to expose Leavitt as an inexperienced spokesperson whose statements on election integrity, unemployment figures, and other issues were contradictory and misleading. What Jeffries didn't anticipate was the folder resting on Leavitt's table, its contents poised to upend his strategy and reshape the political narrative. Jeffries leaned into his microphone, his voice cutting through the room's murmur. "Miss Leavitt, you've made troubling claims about election integrity that simply aren't supported by evidence." The chamber fell silent, the weight of his accusation palpable. Leavitt listened, her face betraying no emotion, her hands resting lightly on the folder. The hearing, called to examine alleged misinformation from the White House press office, was more than a policy discussion. It was a public test of credibility between two figures representing different generations and visions for America. The Democrats, led by Jeffries, saw the session as an opportunity to create viral moments that would portray Leavitt as unprepared and out of her depth, thereby undermining the administration's credibility. Jeffries's staff had compiled a dossier of Leavitt's press briefings, focusing on statements they believed were contradictory, particularly on election security and economic data. As the party's most effective interrogator, Jeffries was tasked with leading the charge. His reputation as a narrative shaper preceded him, and his colleagues exchanged confident glances as he began. Leavitt, the youngest press secretary in American history, represented a new generation of Republican leadership. Critics dismissed her as inexperienced, pointing to her limited resume, while supporters praised her direct communication style and unwavering loyalty to the administration. Unlike many who faced congressional scrutiny, she had chosen to appear without legal counsel, a decision that raised eyebrows among Washington insiders. She sat alone at the witness table, her folder and a notepad her only companions, her demeanor calm but focused. Committee Chairman James Reynolds opened the hearing with a formal statement. "We're examining communication practices from the White House press office regarding key policy announcements," he said, his voice steady. Behind him, staff members clutched folders of prepared questions, while reporters lined the walls, their laptops open and cameras ready to capture any dramatic exchange. The stage was set for a high-stakes political showdown. Jeffries was strategically positioned to lead the Democratic questioning. His staff had prepared a series of video clips from Leavitt's press briefings, each designed to highlight alleged contradictions. As his questioning began, he wasted no time. "The American people deserve transparency," he said, removing his glasses for effect. "Recent statements from the White House press office have created confusion on critical issues. Miss Leavitt, I intend to clarify some of these contradictions today." Leavitt nodded respectfully. "I welcome the opportunity, Congressman," she replied, her voice even. To casual observers, the exchange seemed routine, but those versed in Washington's political theater sensed the tension building. This was a battle of credibility, and Jeffries was determined to dominate. He signaled for the first video clip to be played on the large screens around the room. It showed Leavitt at the White House podium, stating there was significant evidence of irregularities in several state electoral systems. Jeffries leaned forward. "Miss Leavitt, the Department of Homeland Security's report stated categorically that no such evidence existed. How do you explain this contradiction?" The cameras zoomed in on Leavitt, who listened without visible reaction. Several Democratic representatives exchanged satisfied glances, believing they were witnessing the start of a systematic dismantling of her credibility. Leavitt began to respond. "Congressman, the statement you referenced was specifically addressing unofficial ballot collection procedures, not electronic voting systems as characterized in the DHS report." But Jeffries cut her off, signaling for the next clip. "Let's move on," he continued. The screen showed Leavitt claiming unemployment numbers had reached historic lows under the administration. The Bureau of Labor Statistics data directly contradicts that assertion, Jeffries said, his tone sharp. He presented three more examples of alleged contradictions: on border apprehensions, infrastructure bill support, and tax policy, each time allowing Leavitt only a few sentences before moving to the next accusation. His strategy was clear: overwhelm her with rapid-fire questions, creating the impression of a witness unable to provide satisfactory answers. Republican committee members began to object. "Mr. Chairman," called out Representative Sarah Williams, "the witness should be allowed to fully respond to these accusations." Chairman Reynolds overruled the objection. "The gentleman from New York has the floor and may proceed," he said, prompting murmurs from the gallery. Jeffries's questioning grew more intense. "Miss Leavitt," he said, leaning forward, "do you acknowledge that your statement about border apprehensions was factually incorrect according to Customs and Border Protection's own data? And while we're addressing factual inaccuracies, can you explain why you stated the President's infrastructure bill received bipartisan support when not a single member of the opposition voted for it?" The rapid-fire approach was a classic congressional tactic, designed to fluster the witness and dominate the narrative. As his questioning neared its climax, Jeffries delivered what he intended as his knockout blow. "Miss Leavitt, you're the youngest press secretary in White House history. Your resume shows limited experience before taking this role. Given the pattern of misstatements we've established today, I have to ask, do you believe you're qualified to serve as the primary spokesperson for the United States government?" The question elicited gasps from the gallery. Even some Democratic colleagues looked uncomfortable with the direct attack on Leavitt's qualifications. Throughout Jeffries's onslaught, Leavitt had remained composed, taking notes occasionally but showing no signs of frustration. Now something shifted in her demeanor. She straightened in her chair and reached for the folder she had brought to the table. "Congressman Jeffries," she began, her voice carrying a confident edge, "before I address your question about my qualifications, I believe it's important to correct some mischaracterizations in your previous questions." She opened the folder deliberately, removing several documents. I've prepared a detailed response to each alleged contradiction with primary source documentation and full transcripts of my statements in their proper context, she said, sliding the document packet to a committee aide for distribution. But there's another matter I think requires immediate attention. Leavitt removed a single sheet of paper, the document that would change everything. Congressman, she said, looking directly at Jeffries, during your questioning, you claimed I made statements about election systems. I have here the official White House press briefing transcript, which shows I made no such statement. The room fell silent. In fact, she continued, the video clip you played has been deceptively edited. The date stamp shows a period before I was appointed to this position. That statement was made by my predecessor, Thomas Reynolds. Murmurs spread through the gallery as committee members examined the transcript Leavitt had provided. Furthermore, she said, her voice growing stronger, the unemployment figures you referenced were seasonally adjusted numbers, which I specifically noted in my briefing. The full context of my statement, edited out of your clip, makes this distinction clear. Jeffries attempted to interrupt, but Leavitt pressed on. I have here a list of 17 instances where you have publicly mischaracterized statements from my office. In each case, I've provided the complete transcript alongside your public characterization. The C-SPAN cameras captured Jeffries' expression as it shifted from confidence to concern. Chairman Reynolds leaned into his microphone. The gentleman's time has expired. Miss Leavitt, you may complete your response. The hearing room remained silent as Leavitt arranged her documents methodically. What had begun as an attempt to undermine her credibility had transformed into her moment to seize control of the narrative. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Leavitt said, her voice calm but resolute. I'd like to address Congressman Jeffries' final question about my qualifications directly. She looked up, meeting Jeffries' gaze across the room. You questioned whether I'm qualified to serve as White House press secretary based on my age and what you characterized as limited experience. I respect your right to ask that question. Public officials should be scrutinized. She paused, allowing the cameras to capture the moment. However, I believe qualifications should be measured by accuracy, integrity, and results, not simply by years of life or previous titles held. Leavitt reached for another document. This is a statistical analysis of White House press briefing accuracy rates, conducted independently by the Poynter Institute. It shows that my accuracy rating is 96.4%, the highest of any press secretary in the study period. She slid the document forward for submission to the record. Republican committee members examined their copies, several nodding in approval. Now, regarding the specific contradictions you attempted to highlight today, Leavitt continued, I've prepared a comprehensive response. What followed was a systematic dismantling of each accusation. For the election systems claim, she produced a flash drive with the original, unedited footage, clearly showing her predecessor speaking. For the unemployment statistics, she provided the Bureau of Labor Statistics revised figures and her full briefing transcript, which included the qualification Jeffries' clip had omitted. One by one, she addressed each accusation, offering documentation that either disproved Jeffries' characterization or provided crucial context. The committee room's atmosphere transformed. Democratic members looked increasingly uncomfortable, while Republicans could barely contain their satisfaction. But Leavitt wasn't finished. After addressing each claim, she reached for her final document. Congressman Jeffries, you questioned my qualifications based on my age and experience. While I've addressed the substance of that concern, I feel compelled to address a more troubling pattern. She placed the document on the table, and its contents were displayed on the chamber screens. A compilation of Jeffries' public statements about Leavitt, including 14 instances where he referenced her age or appearance, calling her the girl press secretary barely out of college, or suggesting she looked like she should be on Instagram, not behind the White House podium. Leavitt continued, her voice steady. I note with interest that you haven't used similar language when discussing my male predecessors, several of whom were also in their 30s when they served. The implication of bias landed with significant impact. Several female committee members from both parties nodded as Leavitt spoke. I'm not here to claim victimhood, Congressman, she said, maintaining her professional tone. I'm simply suggesting that qualifications should be measured by performance, not demographics. And by any objective performance metric, the record shows I've served effectively in my role. Jeffries, visibly stunned, attempted to recover. Miss Leavitt, the edited clips were prepared by committee staff based on... But he was interrupted by Republican Congressman Marcus Johnson. Mr. Jeffries' time expired several minutes ago. He's now making statements, not asking questions. Chairman Reynolds nodded. The point is well taken. Mr. Jeffries, do you have a specific question for the witness? Jeffries adjusted his glasses, clearly off balance. I would simply ask Miss Leavitt if she denies making any of the statements shown in our video presentation. It was a weak attempt to regain footing, and Leavitt responded decisively. Congressman, I've already addressed each statement in detail with supporting documentation. The issue isn't whether modified versions of these statements were made, but whether your characterization accurately represented their full context and meaning. The evidence I've provided clearly shows they did not. The chamber erupted in applause from the Republican side, quickly gavelled down by Reynolds. As the next representative began their questioning, cameras caught Jeffries conferring urgently with his staff, reviewing Leavitt's documents. His expression made clear that the political dynamics had shifted dramatically. The aftermath spread through Washington like wildfire. Clips of the exchange circulated on social media with hashtags like #LeavittResponds and #Receipts ready trending nationally. Cable news networks ran the footage repeatedly, with headlines like White House Press Secretary turns tables on congressional questioning and Leavitt comes prepared, Jeffries caught off guard. The Washington Post pushed a breaking news alert. In stunning reversal, White House Press Secretary rebuts congressional challenge with extensive documentation. Inside the hearing room, the dynamic had changed. Democratic members softened their questioning, focusing on policy substance rather than contradictions. Republicans, emboldened by Leavitt's performance, highlighted her preparedness and accuracy record. When the hearing concluded, the press swarmed Leavitt as she exited. I came here today to provide accurate information to the committee and the American people, she said. I believe the record speaks for itself. Jeffries, meanwhile, avoided the press, exiting through a side door. The narrative solidified quickly. Political analysts called Jeffries' approach a strategic miscalculation. What we witnessed was a fundamental failure of preparation, said CNN's David Axelrod. Representative Jeffries thought he had a gotcha moment, but Leavitt anticipated the attack and came with a comprehensive counter-response. On Fox News, Laura Ingraham praised Leavitt. She showed Washington what the next generation of political leadership looks like: prepared, precise, and unwilling to be patronized. The White House capitalized on the moment, releasing Leavitt's full documentation package online with a statement from the Chief of Staff. Today, Press Secretary Leavitt demonstrated the administration's commitment to accuracy and transparency. We're proud of her service. Social media reactions split along partisan lines, but many women across the spectrum expressed support for Leavitt's handling of age and gender-based criticism. I disagree with her politics, but watching a young woman refuse to be belittled is something every professional woman can appreciate, tweeted a liberal commentator. Headlines cemented the narrative. The New York Times. In congressional testimony, Leavitt flips script on Democratic questioning. The Wall Street Journal. Press Secretary's prepared response leaves Jeffries scrambling. Politico. How Caroline Leavitt turned a potential career setback into a defining moment. Jeffries' office announced he would step back from his role as lead questioner on the Oversight Committee. Leaked Democratic messaging advised members to focus on policy disagreements rather than personal characteristics when challenging administration officials. Leavitt's profile within the administration soared. Her next press briefing saw record attendance, with reporters noticeably more precise in their questioning. The president referenced the hearing in a cabinet meeting. I think we all saw why I selected Caroline for this role. Preparation matters. Accuracy matters. Political consultants began using the exchange as a case study in crisis preparation, dubbing it the Leavitt method, coming to hostile situations with overwhelming documentation. Public polling reflected the shift. A Gallup poll showed a significant increase in respondents, viewing the White House press office as trustworthy compared to previous surveys. For Jeffries, the consequences were more severe. Whispers about his effectiveness as minority leader became open discussions among Democrats. Today was a masterclass in how not to conduct oversight, commented Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. If we're going to challenge this administration, we need substance, not sound bites. Media analysis identified key factors in Leavitt's success: anticipating specific attacks, bringing original source documentation, maintaining composure, and shifting the narrative to expose bias in the questioning. Political science professors incorporated the exchange into their courses. What we saw was a generational shift in how prepared young political figures have become, noted Georgetown's professor Samantha Wright. The ability to instantly fact-check and provide documentation has changed the power dynamic in these confrontations. The White House Communications Department's Transparency Report highlighted Leavitt's accuracy statistics and included a new section detailing the context of questioned statements. The hearing, intended to diminish Leavitt, had established a new standard for accountability, benefiting both the administration and public access to accurate information. For political observers, the Jeffries-Leavitt confrontation became a cautionary tale about underestimating opponents based on age or experience, and a reminder that in the modern information environment, receipts matter more than rhetoric. Leavitt's performance not only redefined her career, but also set a benchmark for how preparation and precision could alter the outcome of political confrontations in the digital age.